Storytime at the Roo Bus, a weekly podcast about the Bonnaroo Music Festival. I'm your host, Sharla.
And I'm Daniel. Hey, it isn't just about festivals anymore now that we can talk about Bonnaroo again.
Oh, I forgot to say that.
That's okay. Let's just keep going. I feel like it is time for Bonnaroo again now that we've had dates and Roo Clues and a lineup before too long.
I'm sorry I messed up the intro.
Well, that's okay. Whatever. I mean, there are other festivals. We talk about them too, but clearly we drive the Bonnaroo bus, so we're going to talk about Bonnaroo most of the time.
It was supposed to be something about stories or something.
Yeah, we tell stories. We're going to tell some stories later. The first story is you had to have a shot of tequila to really get going with this.
That's probably why I messed up the intro.
Well, that's okay. We'll keep going with it. So, yeah, things are rolling. There was a Roo Clue at 6 o'clock on a Friday night. Kind of odd.
Kind of an odd time to release something.
Do you think somebody was about to leave the office and was like,
as a social media manager, Friday at 5:30 p.m. is an unusual time to release something.
Why do you think they did that?
I don't know. Unless they just had to get it out. We have an obligation to put this out.
Well, I think that they kind of did because if the lineup is going to come out the first or second week of January, like it has for, the recent couple of years, then you want to start putting Roo Clues out now so you can...
True. Maybe they had to put one a week or something. I don't know.
Which it's weird. We're recording this on Tuesday night and there hasn't been another one yet.
Yeah.
I thought there would be one today. Maybe we're just going to get one a week for a little while.
Maybe.
I mean, everything's different now, it feels like, but we are getting Roo Clues.
We never know from day to day. Ever since COVID happened, ever since the pandemic happened, you just never know.
Also, can we talk about that Roo Clue? Because honestly, I'm still stumped.
Okay, there was so many different guesses on that.
So, for anyone that hasn't seen it, it was very cryptic. It was a hot dog with angel wings, basically.
4 angel wings.
Yeah.
4 angel wings.
2 sets of wings.
2 sets.
So usually these first couple of Roo Clues are potentially artists that you might not have ever heard of or barely have heard of. I mean, not to knock them. They're, newer and just getting on the festival circuit. I think Lord Taco and a couple other people figured out who it was, and I honestly can't even remember the name of the artist now. It was this weird hyperpop artist.
There was a lot of people on Reddit that was saying Glaive.
That's it. That's the one I
Glaive,
couldn't think of.
Glaive.
Glaive? How do you say it?
I'm not sure. Glaive, I want to say. Don't quote me.
Now, I shouldn't throw too much shade towards one of these artists that are one of the first couple of Roo Clues, because I remember back in ye olden day of 2015, the first Roo Clue, if I remember right, that year, right before Christmas 2014, was Glass Animals.
Really?
And that was the first time I had ever heard of Glass Animals, when there was a Roo Clue for them.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I remember everybody kind of figured that out, and then I looked up Gooey, and that was the first time I'd ever heard anything from them.
Just from a Roo Clue?
From a Roo Clue, yeah, in December of 2014, I guess it was.
That's really super cool.
Yeah, so you never know if it's going to be a big artist.
So you had never heard of them before that Roo Clue?
I mean, maybe I had in passing, but that was the first time that I kind of paid attention, I suppose,
That's really super cool. Well, another thing with that clue that we got the other day, a lot of people on Reddit were also saying Tierra Whack.
Now, how did they figure that?
Something about, I was trying to look it up real quick, but something about, she has a song, it was 2 different songs. She has a song, something about, don't quote me on this, you can look up the Reddit thread, but it was something about she has a song about 4 wings, or about angel wings, and something to do with 4 wings.
Yeah, I feel like this clue is so ambiguous it could apply to 3 or 4 different artists, honestly.
Right.
That's been a critique of them in the past. I remember back some years ago, there was a clue that everybody swore up and down was Death Cab for Cutie. It was a baby with a shirt that had a coffin on it, and he was crying, and everybody was like, oh, that's Death Cab. It ended up being Slayer, though. I don't know. I almost feel like Death Cab was going to play, but they had to drop out because they played the next year after that.
Well, I found this band it was some random band called Choir Boy, and they had a song called Hot Dog Angel.
Yeah, see? It could be Choir Boy.
There's so many different bands it could be.
And we may not ever even know who it was supposed to be.
Very rarely, I think one time, they posted the answers, but most of the times they don't even post the answers.
Now later on, the Roo Clues get a little bit more obvious, though. I remember one year the clue was a plant growing out of the ground, and it had a name tag next to it that said Robert.
Oh,
yeah. So
one time it was a scary movie buried under wood.
What was that?
Who do you think that it, I mean...
A scary movie buried under wood. Two Door Cinema Club. I don't know. Just tell me.
No, you would think it would be Carrie Underwood if you...
Oh.
But then it was somebody totally different. I don't remember what the answer was.
Oh. I don't remember that
and everybody
one.
was like, Carrie Underwood, what?
I do remember everybody saying that, though. Yeah, they're so ambiguous sometimes. Like, I don't know. I feel like they're making it even more cryptic so we talk about it all week. Hey, we just spent 5 minutes talking about it, so it worked, right?
Has it been 5 minutes?
Yes! Wow. So their marketing strategy played
Clearly.
Yeah,
Clearly.
It worked. Hey, so have you heard some of the other lineup talk? A lot of tours are starting to get announced.
Right.
Yeah. Like a ton, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get the bad news out of the way first. It looks like we're not going to get Tame this coming year at
Aren't
Roo.
they in Europe?
Well, yeah, they're going to be in Europe a lot later in the summer, but a tour just got announced today, and they're playing the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, which is usually a death note for any band that might have played Roo, because if they're playing that, then, yeah, they wouldn't do both. Not saying it's impossible, but it's seeming more and more unlikely now, right?
Well... That sucks.
Yeah, well, it does. But, I mean, hey, Roovians have a chance to see Tame now. They're going to be at the Bridgestone Arena in March. They're going to be at the Hangout Festival. That lineup dropped.
Well, seeing them at a festival, though, is so much cooler, in my opinion.
I agree. I love seeing them over at the arena in Atlanta, but it's just not the same.
It's not.
I don't know. I know it works for some people.
Stretch out.
Yeah. I'm just not a fan of like being in a giant, dark, enclosed space to see a band. I love being like outside, under the stars, like roaming around and seeing totems and crazy things and costumes.
There was like, I saw where Goose was playing somewhere in Nashville, and I looked up the venue, and I was like, yeah, I'm good.
You
like,
really?
Because I have to like, especially for a jam band, if I'm going to go see a jam band of all the bands,
yeah,
I got to lay down and be like,
Now, the place for that would be the amphitheater in Nashville, the Ascend Amphitheater.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen a couple of shows there.
That'd be cool.
I saw Glass Animals is playing there at the Ascend Amphitheater, which might mean that they're not playing Roo. I mean, we just saw Glass Animals not too long ago at an outdoor space.
But I like them.
You want to see them again? I know there's going to be a lot of Roovians at that show. But yeah, that's just going to say that there are a lot of tours being announced, other festivals being announced, which are really putting out the clues as to who we will or won't get at Roo. By the time you listen to this, there might even be another festival lineup announced. I saw that Electric Forest had theirs announced late today as we're recording this. It looked pretty good. I know Electric Forest, like a lot of the appeal, is just going there, not necessarily the lineup itself. But it was cool to see Disclosure playing there.
That was cool, yeah.
I want to see Disclosure. I hope we get them at Bonnaroo. I'd love to have them. We usually have some EDM crossover between Electric Forest and Bonnaroo.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Any other lineup clues you've seen that you've been paying attention to?
What about Coldplay? Are they still in or still out?
Oh, boy. Yeah, well, that could be a contentious question.
I keep seeing it going back and forth from what I've been reading.
Okay, so there is no evidence out there other than the big gap in their tour that happens to have them right in the southeast when Bonnaroo is, which seems to strongly suggest that they will be there. I personally have kind of a gut feeling that Coldplay is going to be at Bonnaroo. It just seems like the kind of booking that they would want to make. It's a booking that it seems no other big festival is going to have, unless Coachella gets them too, which seems unlikely because they're playing in LA pretty much the same time. I don't know. I just got a feeling that we are going to have Coldplay. I mean, we'll know here in a month or so. What do you think? Would you be excited to have them?
I mean, I'd be neutral.
Neutral?
Like I said before. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but...
I think we talked about this before. I love their early stuff. Not a huge fan of their, more recent stuff. I feel like the last Coldplay album that I really liked came out probably 10 years ago. Not saying I hate their stuff now. It's just not really my thing, I would love to have Coldplay. I think that would be a great booking. I'm not going to go to a Coldplay show on their own, but heck yeah, I'd go see them at Bonnaroo. So, I don't know. I feel like we're going to find out sooner or later, but yes, I do kind of have a gut feeling and a sneaking suspicion that we're going to have Coldplay at Bonnaroo. I
mean, yeah. I mean, it'd be cool. I would welcome it.
It seems like it's a good marriage between the two because Bonnaroo has always been pro-green energy and, recycling and all that stuff. And that's kind of what Coldplay is really trying to make an ethos message out of this whole tour,
So what about this Dead and Company rumor that I've seen floating around?
I'd love it to be true. I mean, they last played there in 2016, so it would have been, 6 years?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that same rationale could apply to LCD Sound System, and they're back at it too.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
If I had to pick between the two, that'd be tough. I don't know. I don't know. The older I get, the more I get into the Dead, so I kind of would like to see Dead and Company. John Mayer and them killed it when they were there last time, but so did James Murphy and LCD Sound System. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like we wouldn't get either of those, but it's not impossible. I kind of feel like I would put a little bit more money in the Coldplay stock than Dead and Company
for sure.
or LCD Sound System stock. But this is all speculation. We have nothing to base any of this on.
No, all speculation.
Just the fact that they're touring and dates are open are all anybody has to go on. Usually by now, somebody pops into InfoRoo or puts in a little tip on the Bonnaroo Reddit, but that hasn't happened yet.
I haven't seen, as far as rumors and stuff, I truly haven't seen a lot of, real stuff out there.
Not yet. I mean, there's been a lot of people guessing and speculating, as always.
Some good guesses, but I haven't seen a lot of,
There hasn't been any industry insider talk or tips yet. Usually by now there is. I remember back in 2016, it was around Thanksgiving that somebody tipped off someone at the Bridgestone Arena that Pearl Jam decided to play Bonnaroo instead of the arena, and we all knew by then very early. Back when U2 played, somebody popped in and said, oh, hey, they're going to be playing the Joshua Tree. And it turned out that was the case. It was about this time, So, yeah, it is a little unusual that we haven't heard. So maybe the way that they're booking it now is keeping it a little bit more secretive, I suppose. I don't know.
Okay, Daniel, before we get to our good stuff for the week, do you want to do our picks?
Yeah, sure, why not? Why don't you go first?
No, you go first. I always go first.
I'm going first?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make mine pretty simple this week and pick the new Beatles documentary that's on Disney, the Get Back documentary.
Ooh, that everybody's watching?
Yeah, that everybody's already talking about. It's been out since Thanksgiving Day, I think, or a couple of days before Thanksgiving. It is basically the same thing as Lord of the Rings. It's directed by the same guy, and it's about 4 guys with kind of moppy hair trying to complete an impossible task.
Oh.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
And it's really, really long. It's 9 hours long. Very similar to Lord of the Rings. I love both of those things. This one is insane in such a good way because, the Beatles at this point have been mythologized. Most of us, it's a couple of generations before us now at this point, right? We all grew up listening to all the different albums and, seeing, some of the old movies, A Hard Day's Night, or some of these old things that they've done or whatever. But we never lived at the same time as the Beatles actually doing their work. A lot of us got to see Paul McCartney back in 2013 and see the magic in person. But still, it's something that's before our time. This documentary puts it right in front of you. Not just in terms of oh, hey, these guys were funny. They made some great music. But in terms of well, here they are, warts and all, making the music right in front of you, almost in real time, because it's so long and it goes through the whole process. It isn't a documentary in terms of hey, the Beatles were cool. They did this great thing. Maybe they got a little contentious and broke up, but look what they did. This new documentary doesn't necessarily take almost a marketing approach to telling the story. It puts you in the room almost in real time to see how all these songs were written, how they came up with the different guitar riffs and things like that. It's such a cool look at seeing how music gets made from a band. And it's kind of timeless. It doesn't really matter that this happened at Abbey Road Studios 50 years ago or whatever. This is how stuff is being made more or less now, even though the technology is a lot different,
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I'm still not all the way through it. I'm 2/3 through it. I haven't watched the third part where they do the rooftop show and everything. How much did you watch with me, or did you even care?
I don't think I watched any of it.
Brooklyn watched a lot of it with me. And, one of the takeaways for me is, even though they were kind of on the verge of breaking up in the first part, where they were kind of like having a hard time working together, it was almost like a group project. Like Paul McCartney is like the one kid that's doing all the work in a group project, and he got a little bossy because of it. That's why George left for a short time or whatever. In the second part, it's amazing. Like, they're all cutting up and like having a good time, and it's fun to remember that, like, at that time, even late in their career as the Beatles, like, they were still like around 25 years old, and they were just acting like a bunch of fun idiots. Like, it's as if you were just a fly on the wall watching a bunch of people at their campground at Bonnaroo or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's weird because they're like cutting up and joking around and everything, and then they take it seriously and they sit down, and all of a sudden, like, Get Back comes out of nowhere.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Like, John Lennon, like in the second part, like I don't want to get too deep into it, but it was kind of clear that he sobered up a little bit from a bender that he had been on. And he kept playing to the camera and like trying to make everybody laugh or whatever. Like, I know he was a complicated dude that had some problems and everything, but like seeing him like that, like reminds you why you love him, you know?
Yeah.
Even though we've all grown up with Paul being around, and a lot of us got to see Paul in 2013, but like, John Lennon has become kind of like this mythical figure. You know, he's got both good and bad things about him or whatever, but seeing him at his best there is just a reminder of how lovable he really was, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, for sure.
You don't have any other thoughts?
I mean, I didn't watch it, so.
Well, at least watch a good portion of part 2. I can't speak to part 3 yet, where they do the show on top of the roof, but part 2, when they're recording, when they actually are in a good mood, man, It's so fun. It's so fun to like just see them working and working well together, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Get Back, it's on Disney Plus. I'm sure you already heard a lot of people talk about it. Dig into it. I mean, there's not really a story to it. It's basically like, hey, you get to spend 9 hours with the Beatles. Like, really the Beatles. Not the Beatles that you're going to see on like posters and whatever, but like how they really were. And I feel like it's the first time that you really get to see that. And it's so fun.
Would you say it's the best like Beatles documentary or Beatles thing you watched?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, it's tough to say that it's the best. I mean, I watched A Hard Day's Night. They put that on HBO, I guess, to compete with Disney. And that's kind of fun, you know. It's like, oh, you spend a day or two with the guys, but it's them as they're presenting from a marketing perspective, right? It's like, oh, everybody wants you to love these 4 lovable guys. But, like, when you see Get Back, you're like, oh, these are a bunch of like really creative and a bunch of like goofy 20-somethings that just happen to be like musical geniuses. It's hard to call it better than anything, but it's more real than anything. I guess that's why I like it so much, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
But yeah, oh my gosh, I just can't recommend it enough. I know it's a lot, but just have part 2 on in the background. Leave it on for an hour. Just basically hang out with the Beatles. It's so fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
All right. Do you have any picks for us?
I do have some picks for you.
Tell us about it.
So, when was it? Like right before Thanksgiving or something? We went and saw House of Gucci.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did we talk about this last time?
I don't think so, but we love Gaga in this household, so that was the main draw for her.
The Gaga household.
Yeah.
So, we love Gaga. We love Adam Driver.
Oh, gosh. Brooklyn does.
Brooklyn does, mostly.
It's a shame she didn't see this yet.
Yeah, oh my gosh. It was just an incredible film.
For that one scene in the office.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, I love fashion and just such a good movie. I mean, definitely check it out. I did not realize until I came home, till after the movie, that Jared Leto was in the movie.
Jared Leto was basically playing like Mario or Luigi in this.
Basically, yeah. But just the whole story, and I had to like go home and like read about it and look it up and everything. Just it's so wild, just such a wild story. Apparently, the family has came out against the movie and stuff.
Well, I would imagine I would imagine so. It makes them look pretty backstabby.
Well, yeah, but oh my goodness, it's just it's some drama, kind of like one of those like American crime drama things, shows, but it's just wild.
I haven't watched Succession on HBO at all, but I have heard people compare it to that.
Really?
It's like Succession, but with Italians in fashion.
Okay. You know, I heard a lot of people talk about how bad Gaga's accent was in this, and I didn't think it was that bad.
Well, compared to Jared Leto, anyway.
Well, yeah. Compared to that, yeah. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, I could tell it was a little off, but I didn't think it was, like, terrible. I didn't think it was worth, like, as much critique as it got, as much criticism as it got.
So I'm going to tell you, you wanted to go see this movie really bad, and I took you, and I fully expected to kind of doze off because I knew it was like 2.5 hours long or whatever. I was enraptured that whole 2.5 hours.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was the thing. It was a 2.5 hour movie, and not once. And like, I don't go to theaters like normally. I can't stand going to theaters.
It did not feel like a movie that long.
No, I loved it. Like, it was such a good movie.
I kind of wanted it to be longer. I was a little, I don't want to spoil the story, but I was kind of disappointed that it didn't have kind of more of a epilogue after what happened.
Right.
You know? Yeah. Maybe, it was a Ridley Scott movie. Maybe there'll be an extended version at some point, like he has with basically everything else.
Yes.
Yeah. I love his movies. For anybody that hasn't seen it, you should watch the extended cut of Kingdom of Heaven. It made it a totally better movie. That's why I'm kind of hopeful that they'll do an extended cut of this movie.
That'd be cool.
House of Gucci.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
There's so much more that I want to see.
Yes.
Like, I'll take deleted scenes.
So next thing that I have, next pick that I have. So I went and got my booster. Excuse me. I went and got my booster last week on Friday.
You're picking the booster?
So I laid up on the couch all day on Saturday, and I watched. It's like a 3-part documentary or a 3-episode documentary, whatever, on Hulu called The Curse of Von Dutch.
Yeah, what the? Okay, I'm glad you're explaining this because I saw you watching that and I still don't understand what the heck that was.
Do you remember that brand back in the early 2000s? Von Dutch?
No, I don't.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
I was not paying attention in the early 2000s to that kind of stuff.
Clearly, you weren't a early 2000s fashionista like me.
No. Well, explain this to me. Do you remember?
Okay, it was like more like 2004 to 2007-ish. And it was like all the celebrities were wearing it. And it was like Paris Hilton was wearing it. And like Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson were wearing it.
If you say so.
And like all the the tops. Britney Spears was wearing it. And like the trucker hat that said Von Dutch.
Now I remember the trucker hats. I had one.
But no. Those came out. Just regular trucker hats came out before that. But these said Von Dutch.
I vaguely remember it.
Vaguely remember it? Okay. Well, it was like a brand that came out in the early 2000s. Well, this was like The Curse of Von Dutch. And it pretty much explained like these guys that created the brand. And basically like, it was basically the rise and fall of that company is what it was. And basically told how the company rose to fame, getting celebrities to wear their brand and getting celebrities to like promote their brand.
So basically you went through the same story as House of Gucci again. But about some fashion later on, a couple of decades later.
I don't want to spoil it. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's bingo.
Really?
Bingo.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're really into this kind of story the past couple of weeks. All right.
Yes. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but yes.
That's funny because your mom mentioned something about that American Crime Story thing about Versace. So apparently you guys are both into this right now.
Yes. All right. So definitely check that out. It's only 3 episodes, and you can get through them really quick. It's one of those things where you don't have to pay like very close attention to. You can kind of have it on in the background to kind of get the gist of it.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out. It's called.
What did you watch? What was the name of it? It was on Hulu, wasn't it?
The Curse of Von Dutch.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Von Dutch.
Von Dutch.
Dutch.
No, I think it's Von Dutch. And it's on Hulu, so check that out.
You got anything else?
Yes, I have one more thing.
She's got 3 things. Okay.
I'm sorry. I watched a lot of stuff this week.
It's all good.
So I've been watching John Oliver on YouTube lately, and I did not know that he also has YouTube web exclusives.
Yeah.
And they're only like 6 minutes long. And he just talks about the most random assortment of stuff.
We watched one where he just explained why he thought octopuses were awesome.
And there was one like about this Danish cartoon about this.
Oh gosh.
Cartoon superhero, and it's for kids. Cartoon superhero with a giant penis,
like 30 feet long,
and it's hilarious. So check out if you're into John Oliver. Check out his YouTube channel because that's where all the good stuff is.
Did you find mine in Brooklyn Stash? Is that why you liked that so much?
No. No, I just had a lot of time on my hands.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm glad that you are alerting everyone to this.
Since I got a new job, I have a lot of good time on my hands.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, since you gave 3 picks, I'll give one bonus one real quick. I have loved the hell out of this new Guardians of the Galaxy game that's on PlayStation 4 and 5. And it's on sale for half off. So go get that if you're looking for something fun to play. I can't recommend it enough. It's awesome. Okay, Charlotte, we're coming up on a new decade of Bonnaroo now since we had to miss the past 2 that we should have had. I thought this might be a good time to kind of do a fun list. What do you think?
That sounds cool.
Yeah, so what I was thinking is you and I could list our top 5 shows that we saw at Bonnaroo this past decade.
Okay, cool.
It's kind of a fun end-of-the-year list, kind of like everybody did their Spotify thing this past week or whatever, you know?
I got my list.
Yeah? Well, all right, don't let me look. I'm going to be surprised. We're going to count down here in just a minute. How did it look on your Spotify Wrapped? I mean, mine was clearly like stuff like Tame and King Gizzard and stuff.
Mine was mostly Glass Animals and Camp.
Camp?
Yeah.
You really need to see Camp live. Oh, by the way, I am in the camp of loving seeing everyone's Spotify list. I don't know why there's so much hate about
I love looking at Spotify Wrapped.
I mean, it's a great way for me to see, I should check out this artist. And so I know and respect, listens to them a lot.
I find out who I'm most alike.
Yeah.
Apparently, me and Lauren, our friend Lauren from Nashville, are the same person. So,
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how they do that every year. It tells a little story when you put it together. But anyway, we're going to tell the story about our favorite live shows that we had seen at Bonnaroo in the past 10 years. And I thought before we get into ours, I can tell some from friends. I asked a question on Twitter, wanted people to give their top 5 that they had seen. And I got a lot, more than we can really go over on the podcast. But I'm going to kind of skim through and get some of the highlights. So let's start. Skylar, here's her top 5. She says, Jack White in 2014, D'Angelo in 15, Florence and the Machine in 15, Radiohead in 12, and Pretty Lights in 11. I have heard many, many things about those. Let's see. We have another from Lake Martin. They say Jay-Z, Damian Rice in the Tent, Lauryn Hill, My Morning Jacket, and Bon Iver. I've got some things to say about a lot of these. All right. Jay Morris says Beastie Boys in 2009. Oh, that's a little more than a decade ago, but yes. Oh my gosh. That would probably rank in my top 5 if I was there for sure.
That would be like number 1.
Yeah. He says Questlove and Ben Harper in 2007. There was a NOLA Super Jam in 2008. I've heard about that. Springsteen in 2009. Pearl Jam in 2008. So yeah, he's giving us the decade before. That's all right. Got a shout out from Kyle the Bonnaroo. He says, it's hard to imagine a more prolific musician than Nile Rodgers. With his collaboration history, there's not a single listener who hasn't heard at least one song he's recorded. That's a big one because I know there was a lot of people that we know on stage dancing at that show. Childish Brandino says Childish Gambino, Jack White, Alabama Shakes, the Tom Petty Super Jam in 2018, and Robert Plant in 2015. Let's do 2 more. There's been so many. Evan, our buddy up in New York, says Jack White, Moon Taxi, Gambino, Mumford & Sons, and Lionel Richie. Ooh, I have something to say about the Lionel Richie show later. And last but not least, Joshua Roo says Jack White, Dead and Company, Yonder Mountain String Band. Nobody else said that. That's a good pick. Macklemore in 2016. He said he had no business being that good. Okay. And then Elton John with some honorable mentions of U2, Lionel Richie, Kendrick Lamar, and pretty much any show from My Morning Jacket.
Can I interject with, I was going to put Macklemore on my list, but I didn't want to get made fun of.
That Macklemore show in 2016 was divisive.
It was so good.
It was?
I cried.
It was... My memory of that is messed up because, like, the storm came right in the middle of that show. They had to, restart it right when we came back in. Remember
I actually cried during a song, so, yeah.
That album that he had out that year was a bit of a flop, but that was a good show.
Yes.
You know? All right. Do we want to do our top 5? Do you want to start with any honorable mentions that you have? We'll count backwards.
Okay, I actually made a top 10.
Okay. We'll go. Let's hear
I'll do
your
my
5 to 10 as your honorable mentions. Yeah.
Okay. So, wait, okay. So, number 10 would be the Lumineers in 2013.
Ooh.
Number 9 would be Rufus Du Sol in 2018. Number 8 would be
What do you got? Tell me.
Weird Al in 2013.
Oh, that is a very good pick. Weird Al has said that was his favorite live show he's ever played.
Yeah.
He's not ashamed to say that.
Number 7 would be Tame Impala in 2016.
Oh.
Number 6 would be Old Crow in 2018.
All right. So for my purposes, I'm telling you, I am purposefully omitting Paul McCartney in 2013 because that's just so far and beyond. You can't even.
Yeah. We're not counting Paul McCartney.
Yeah. And I'm not counting Tame Impala in my list because that's so personal for me. That would be way on up there too. So I'm omitting that. All right, here's my honorable mentions that are above my 5. So U2, that one year that they played. I'm putting that in my honorable mention because that's also personal for me because I love them so much. I love them, but they kind of phoned it in a little bit. The more that show has aged, it was great, but there wasn't anything specifically Bonnaroo about it, you know? It was like they did their same show that they did the whole tour. There wasn't anything like unique about it.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Even though it was great. Another one, M83 in 2016. That was fun. Alt J a few years ago when they played on Witch. That Lionel Richie show when he played on the What stage.
I forgot about that.
You forgot Lionel Richie.
I forgot.
That was such an amazing show because he played to the crowd so well. He was hilarious and was joking around with everyone.
Talking about didn't have a right to be that good.
Seriously. Oh man, it was so good. Portugal the Man, when they played a late night set after U2 that one year. That was a mind-blowing show.
I had that, but I marked it out.
And Alabama Shakes, when they played on the What stage during the Sunset, when we were in the pit for that. Remember?
Yeah.
That was a great show. Those are my honorable mentions outside of my top 5. All right, so let's start with your number 5. No, just tell me your number 5.
Yeah, my number 5.
Yeah.
Well, it's I put it on here twice because they played twice.
Yeah.
So the Avett Brothers in 14 and 19.
Ooh, all right. Why'd you put them there? Why'd you pick them?
Because they always play with. Okay, so I like Old Crow more than the Avett Brothers. I love Old Crow. I've seen Old Crow more than any band ever. But where they put Old Crow at Bonnaroo, they always put them on the What stage with the sunset going down.
Old Crow, I feel like we saw them at Witch the last time they were.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Avett Brothers.
The Avett Brothers, yeah.
The Avett Brothers, where they put them at Bonnaroo, they always put them on the What stage with the sun going down at sunset.
That's always nice.
And you're always like no, you know, and like the sunset over in the background.
And loving you.
And it's just like,
yeah.
It's just like heavenly. Where they always put the Avett Brothers right there with the sunset. And like, I don't know, there's just something so magical about seeing the Avett Brothers at sunset at Bonnaroo.
And we kind of sort of got to do that last year at that one-off show at the farm.
It was nighttime, though.
Yeah. No, that was fun. I liked it.
Was still fun. Yeah, it was great, but...
Since they had an extended time on the stage for that one-off show, they were able to play around a little bit. They did basically their own versions of Drum in Space, like the Grateful Dead used to, you know. That was pretty fun. But yeah, we kind of got to see that last year. All right, I'll tell you my number 5. We'll kind of alternate.
Okay.
My number 5 is Bon Iver when he did his first set on the Witch stage a couple of years ago. That was one of the most magical things I've ever seen. A lot of other Bonnaroo shows, you see totems everywhere and people are rowdy. That one, there was kind of like this hush, revered silence for his show. And I don't know, I've never seen anything else like that. And I felt like I was watching the future of live music right there when like he was kind of like the conductor of his own symphony in a way, you know?
Cool, yeah.
You weren't there. You went to something else. I was there with Brooklyn and some other friends. Where did you go that night?
I don't know.
You messed up. You should have been there.
No, I'm just not a big Bon Iver for Bon Iver.
Boner Bear?
I've just never been a huge...
Well, that album that came out the year before that was just like a huge deal for me and a couple other friends, and seeing a lot of it played live was insane. I didn't think a lot of that album could be played live, but he proved me wrong. It was fun. Yeah. All right. What's your number 4, Charles?
Forget my list. Mumford 2015.
Ooh, Ooh, okay.
Because they brought out like half of Bonnaroo.
Yes, for that encore.
And sang All My Friends or whatever, or
Little Help from My Friends.
Little Help from My Friends.
It was the Joe Cocker version of that Beatles song.
Yes. It was so much fun. It's just a fun show. And like literally that was the first time that we took friends with us to Bonnaroo.
Yeah, our buddy Aaron was there and he was like blown away.
Yes. Yeah. Just such a fun show.
That was a good way for him to be thrown in the deep end of the pool.
And I feel like we were in a good spot for that show.
Yeah.
And the vibes were just really good.
Yeah. Ooh, I will have more to say about that in a minute. Not to spoil my list. My number 4 is LCD Sound System in 2016. Okay. You ever go see a really good movie and you didn't see the trailer for it beforehand and you end up being like pleasantly surprised with how good it was? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how that show was, because there was a lot of skepticism beforehand. They're like, really? A lot of people are like, really? Is LCD Sound System a headliner? And within 10 minutes of that show, everybody was like, whoa, yeah, these guys are headliners.
Don't get mad.
Yeah.
You might want to edit this after I saw you.
No, just say it.
I had them on my list, but I marked it out because we only stayed for 3 songs.
No, you remember that wrong for reasons that we won't talk about here. We were there for like a good 90% of that because we left early to go see Tame Impala over at the Work Stage.
We were not there for 90%.
No, yes, we were. I remember. No, because we left right as they were doing Dance Yourself Clean.
Yeah.
And that was towards the end of that set. We left a little early to get a good spot for Tame Impala. We saw like 80-90% of that set. I promise you we did.
I thought it was more like half.
No, it was well more than that, I promise you.
Okay.
But, oh my God, I had never seen such a dance party in the Whatfield that night. Just this mood overtook the whole audience. There was a vibe there that I've never experienced at Bonnaroo since.
I've never seen anything like that.
Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but like, LCD Sound System was just the perfect party host that night. I can't even say much more about it. It was just a magical experience, and I don't even know what else to say. Okay, Sharla, what's your number 3?
All right, people are going to disagree with me on this one. U2, 2017.
Yeah, I feel like that's another one that's a little divisive for kind of the reasons that I mentioned before.
Well, either way you look at it, no one can disagree that U2 is undoubtedly one of the most well-known bands in the whole world. Yeah,
U2 was the biggest get for Bonnaroo ever, aside from McCartney, for sure.
For real. So I think just being able to see them live, I mean, Joshua Tree is one of the biggest albums ever.
Yeah, that was very special.
So just being able to see that and just growing up, you know, knowing about U2 and just being aware of U2 and just even when we were dating, seeing that you had a Joshua Tree poster in your room.
Yeah.
Funny enough, that Joshua Tree poster said Manchester on it.
It did, yeah.
Which is crazy. So just being able to see U2 and just knowing that, you know, we grew up with those posters and that just was just such a gift.
Yeah. Maybe if I had this list to do over, I would put them higher up. I don't know. Like I said, the more it's aged, I kind of felt like that show was phoned in a little bit.
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
I mean, I didn't hate it. I loved it. I'm like so blessed to have been in the pit for that show. But I don't know. U2 doesn't really improvise with their shows, so like they aren't really the best festival band. I usually am not a fan of going to an arena to see a show, but I feel like it would be better suited to see U2 in an arena, perhaps.
I guess it's just more personal for me. Is why I listed them higher up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's clearly personal for me. That's why it's a little surprising that they're higher up for you than they are for me. I don't know. Maybe my opinion would change over time. But I love that show. I didn't have it in me to put it in my top 5. I don't know why. If you ask me tomorrow, I might feel differently. I don't know. All right. Are we up to number 3 for me now, I think?
Yes.
Number 3 for me is Mumford & Sons in 2015.
It's a good show.
Mostly for the reasons that you already talked about. It's similar to what I said about LCD Sound System. There was just a really good vibe in the crowd that night. Like you said, we were a really good spot. That encore that they did with half the lineup was amazing. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There was just a great energy from the band and the crowd that night. It's tough to forget that kind of thing. And that's kind of why I'm listing some of these. It's like, it's not just like, oh, the band was good, but like, no, the crowd was good.
Right. And I feel like those type of vibes are one of the main reasons I go to Bonnaroo.
Yeah.
Like, truthfully.
Yes. And remember that because that is why I picked my number 1 later.
Well, I mean, not to not to snark on any other festivals, but like, you go to other festivals and even when you're in the crowd, you just don't get those same experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's truly like that's what makes it for me at Bonnaroo.
Exactly. All right. With that in mind, what is your number 2?
Number 2? Okay. Let's see here. Let me look at my list. Oh, okay. This is going to be a surprise. This is going to be a surprise.
For me or for somebody else?
For everybody.
Oh.
Okay. St. Paul, 2014 and 2018.
Whoa. Okay, that is a surprise that you put them this high up. All right, tell me why.
Yes. Because both times when I saw those, especially in 2014 was the first time I seen them. And I'm pretty sure it was the first time that they played Bonnaroo. Okay, so you could tell that Paul Janeway, the lead singer, was like beyond joyed to play Bonnaroo. And like, he literally used to work Bonnaroo. And he just went on and on and on about how he used to work Bonnaroo.
Yeah.
And he is like the most true showman that I have ever in my life seen. I mean, he rivals some of the great showmans of all time. Like, of all time.
He's a little ridiculous sometimes, in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. And like, in 2018, he literally rode a carpet through the crowd.
And he kissed my totem.
Yes. But, I mean, he is just such a fantastic performer. I mean, even if you're not, a huge fan of that type of music, you have to see them perform. I mean, seriously, like, he is just one of the best performers I've ever seen. We actually saw them at the Caverns up in Tennessee. And it was like one of the COVID outdoor shows where you have to be in the little pods.
Yeah, that was fun,
and
though.
You could tell that he desperately wanted to like come off the stage and run around and do his usual thing. I mean, you could tell so hard he was having to hold it in. But just in 2014, I mean, you could just tell like the enthusiasm coming from him. He was just so excited to be there. And I love more than anything to see people who have truly like worked hard to like make it and like, weren't just like given their career, so to say.
Yeah.
So I love to see that.
Paul Janeway is kind of like if a middle school math teacher had the soul and energy of Mick Jagger all of a sudden.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. They opened for the Stones at one point, so I feel like there's a little something there, perhaps, Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm sure they will be back at Bonnaroo at some point. They have a new album coming out, so it's very possible we might see them back. Okay, are we up to my number 2 now, I think?
Yes.
All right. Mine is Childish Gambino a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Speaking about a performer being in sync with the crowd,
yep. Mm-hmm.
That was just on another level. That is the one time I have seen like one performer just completely own a crowd like that. Like, it was on the level of like probably like Michael Jackson at his highest peak in the 80s, like just completely owning a venue. Like, as soon as he was up on that riser in front of everybody and, started out with kind of a soulful song and then went into, I think Algorithm was the second one as it was coming down. It was like he had the place in the palm of his hand. And it was like seeing someone like in their prime compete at their prime, like Michael Jordan play basketball, like in the 90s or something like that. Seeing somebody just absolutely at the top of their game like that. And I was, again, so blessed to have been in the pit for that. It was insanity.
I started to put that on my list, but I thought it was too popular.
Oh, man. I don't think, well, it's not going to be a controversial pick at all because anybody who was there loved the heck out of that, But, yeah, that's my number 2. Are we up to your number 1 now?
Number 1.
Yes. You go first with your number 1.
Okay. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Okay. Obviously not Paul McCartney because we left him out because that's just too far.
Yeah. It's not fair. You can't
put a price on that. You can't put a number on that.
So you can just assume that he is the number 1, really.
You can't put a number on Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
That's just too beyond.
But for our purposes today, what's your number 1?
Jack Black, 2000.
Okay, mine too.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah,
I thought that was
absolutely. No, that is.
We're gonna have to stop including him.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, you tell why first. You go first.
For the same reason that I picked St. Paul,
Yeah.
Because his performance, I mean, just such a showman, and the way that, and I guess for the same reason I would have said St. Paul, or for the same reason I would have said Paul McCartney, because the way that Jack White interacted with the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that crowd interaction. And for the same reason you said Lionel Richie, it's the crowd interaction.
Well, with Jack, it wasn't so much that he was trying to cut up and be goofy. It was like, oh, hey, your weirdo cousin is here, and he's going to tell some tales and stuff.
Right.
Telling about, like, well, here's how Johnny Depp got his start. I'm glad you didn't have anything better to do. Or, hey, guys, look at the moon. What do you think about that? You know? It
was great. It was fantastic. I mean, just being a true performer and just having an actual show, I think. Just putting on a true, like, not just going up there and, I'm going to sing you some songs.
Yeah.
No, performing.
Okay, yes. So what Jack White did that night is the inverse of what I was critiquing U2 for. So somebody like U2,
right.
or, you know, forgive me, Kyle, and other people, but Elton John get up there and they have their set list, and you're basically hearing an artist cover their own songs.
Right.
Like sometimes it feels like there isn't like the soul in it that should be at a big festival, at a big gladiatorial event like that. Jack White gets up there, and kind of similar to what I talked about with Bon Iver, he's kind of like the conductor of his weirdo orchestra. He's getting up there and calling audibles and kind of like playing with things as he goes and like pointing at somebody in his band to like take a solo, or he takes one himself. There was so much improv in that show, and he connected so well with the audience that night. There was just this crazy symbiotic energy between him and a crowd of like 80,000 people.
So, do you think he'll have anything better to do this June?
I hope so. He's got 2 new albums coming out. He's going on tour. I need it to happen. It'll been, 7 or 8 years since that legendary show?
I don't know, whenever 2014. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. I can't math anymore. But yeah, anybody who was at that show, just, you can't argue that everyone's face was melted.
Yes.
Like there were so many people, like a lot of Bonnaroo live shows you go to, and there's like the one thing that everybody remembers. Even for Paul McCartney, it's like, Hey Jude. We talked about Mumford & Sons. It was when they come out and did A Little Help With My Friends. Mm-hmm. There's a couple other things like that with other big bands. With that Jack White show, there's like 3, 4, 5 or 6 different parts that people still go on about. It's like him telling the I'm glad you didn't have anything better to do story. It's him coming out and playing Lazaretto and just like tearing up the place. Doing Seven Nation Army towards the end. Playing We're Gonna Be Friends as a country song. Mm-hmm. So many different things like people can pluck out of their mind for that show. And to me, look, we've been going to Bonnaroo since 2013. I know there was a lot of shows that we didn't go to that were seen as legendary, like those 2 Radiohead shows, or that one time that Jay-Z came down. A couple other things. To me, maybe this is the one controversial statement about Jack White. I think that might be the best show in the history of Bonnaroo, even more so than McCartney.
Well, since you've been going.
Since I've been going, I think that Jack White show in 2014 is the greatest performance in Bonnaroo history.
Since you've been going.
No, the whole time.
You don't know. You didn't.
There will be those that disagree.
I'm going to have to disagree.
If somebody asked me, I would say that is the greatest show in the history of Bonnaroo in the 20 years of it.
I'm going to have to disagree.
I think it's even better than McCartney.
Would you say better than Beastie Boys?
Oh gosh, yeah, I didn't consider that. Okay, the Beastie Boys show, we weren't there. I would love to. We've talked to a couple of people who were there. The Beastie Boys show was, on the same plane as many of their other shows around that time, but it's seen as a legendary show because it was their last. Was it a good show because it was a good show, or was it a good show because it was their last show?
You weren't there. You don't know.
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question. Okay, we could get into controversy with this, I suppose. But I'm just saying, you're asking me, I think Jack White's show is the best show in Bonnaroo history.
You missed 13 years of art.
I know.
12 years.
I know.
Of Bonnaroo.
But I have talked to people who have been to all of them and who have seen all these headliner shows. I'm just saying.
Just because you know a guy.
Oh, you might know a guy. Well, what do you say is the best in all of Bonnaroo history then?
I don't know. I can only tell you 2013 to present.
Okay.
If I was telling you 2013 to present, I'd say Paul McCartney or Jack White.
Okay, so here's why.
I'd say Paul McCartney.
Here's why I think Jack White's show may have even been better than Paul McCartney's. Paul was phoning it in, but he's so good we didn't know that. He was still kind of playing the same show that he was playing on each show of that tour. He's just so good. He's such a good showman that you don't even realize that. Like, Paul McCartney phoning it in is still better than 99% of everybody else out there.
Yeah.
He's been at the top of his game for like 50 years where that doesn't even matter. Jack White was kind of proving himself at the time. It doesn't seem that way now, but there was skepticism at the time from some people on like InfoRoo and some of the, Bonnaroo Reddit places. That like, people were like, really, is Jack White a headliner? And he came out there and he proved far above and beyond that he was a headliner that night.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, he was on his home turf in Tennessee, just down the road from Nashville, where he has a shop where, he's kind of an import. He's really from Detroit. But he kind of took up Nashville as his home turf, and he was instrumental in constructing the new Nashville. Yeah. Taking it from just being a country town to being, kind of like this new rock industry town with him and the Black Keys and a couple other acts. But I feel like he was potentially the most instrumental. And he came out there and showed like why he owns Nashville. Yeah. That night. It was like you saw, like, I mean, all apologies to Gaga, but you saw a star being born that night. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I have really gone on telling my opinion about this. But this is all prelude to why I would really love to see him back in 22.
I would love to see him back also.
2 new albums. A lot of new work since then. Mm-hmm. He killed it on Saturday Night Live last year. That was probably the best performance on there in years.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. People still talk about that. But yes, we shall ask Rufus and the Bonnaroo powers that be that we get Jack White in 22. Yeah. All right, Charlotte. Any other honorable mentions you can think of?
No, I think we covered them all.
We did cover it. Oh, man.
Covered so many people.
Yes. This may generate some talk. I think we had a controversial opinion or two.
I had some people I marked out, but...
Really? Who'd you mark out?
I can't tell. I marked them out.
Let me see.
I marked out Red Hot Chili Peppers.
They were great. I should put them in my honorable mentions, too.
I feel like we didn't get up close enough for them. Like, I should have got up closer.
We did. You just don't remember.
Because I had their main album in high school.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I borrowed it from somebody.
Wait, I got one last question. We're moving into a new era of Bonnaroo. We're finally about to get back and go into a new decade of Bonnaroo. Who do you want to be at Bonnaroo that has never been?
Well, Dolly Parton.
Dolly? Why did I even ask that question?
Yeah, do I have to count that? Because that's like...
Yeah.
Lady Gaga, do I have to say that?
Yeah, I know. Any reunions? You mentioned about stuff that you listened to back in the day, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool to have a No Doubt reunion at Bonnaroo?
Ooh, that'd be dope.
That'd be dope.
Green Day is playing a lot of festivals.
People have been talking about that. I feel like they'd be a good fit.
Okay. All jokes aside, I would love to see Green Day.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I would welcome them as a headliner.
Thank you. Like, I've been trying to see Green Day for like 20 years. I mean, maybe that's just me.
We'll have to see. She went to that tour last year, I suppose. They played with like Fall Out Boy and Weezer.
This happened and nobody told me?
Yeah, they played at the Braves Park. Something was going on when they played that show.
Nobody tells me about these good shows.
We were at something else or whatever. All right, Charlotte, we've gone on about plenty enough. Yeah.
Oh, man, this is going on for like 53 minutes.
That's okay, whatever. All right, we will be back next week. I haven't told you this, but our friend Joe from Kentucky will be on next week. She had planned on riding with us in the bus last year, but then, the rain happened. I think she will be riding with us in the bus because her and Brooklyn have turned into BFFs. And we got to see her last week when we were in Louisville. She took us to a cool taco place. And oh, man. I learned that you got to go on that side of Louisville where those little clubs and stuff are.
Bardstown Road or something?
Yeah, Sharla did 2 karaoke songs over there at that place that Joe took us to.
Oh, I sang karaoke and I sang Reba.
Yeah. Twice?
I sang the telephone song and Fancy.
Fancy, yeah. Fancy, you didn't let me down. You know?
Okay.
All right. Well, we will be back with Joe next week. And, hey, it's probably just a matter of weeks until we have a lineup to talk about. And Bonnaroo 2022 to look forward to and start making some playlists for. You excited?
I'm very excited.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to be here before too long. We'll see you guys next week. Get out there and radiate positivity.
Bye.
You're a little late on the draw. All right.